What's up guys? I'm a little over a week post shoulder surgery, feeling really good. Haven't worked on the bike and probably won't for a while still. I've been discussing the best options for this cylinder with Millennium Technologies, and I am going ahead and sending it out to them to have it re-sleeved and replated. This thing is going to come back looking super fresh and ready to go. Alright guys, it's been about another month since I filmed that clip sending the cylinder off to Millennium. I'm feeling really good, recovery's going well, and I'm ready to start working on the bike again. So, I submitted another order to Pryme actually because I was so impressed with those cleaning wheels that I finally ordered some for the Dremel as well so that we can get into those tighter spaces. And I'm just now unpacking this actually. Got some mini flap wheels to get into those really hard to reach places. A couple more. And then Cameron had this sweet deal where you could get a free shirt if you ordered during his Black Friday promo, so pretty stoked on this. That's super awesome. If you guys want any of these wheels, I actually have a referral code that would help me out, and then these things are just awesome. I mean, you see what they've done to this swing arm. There's the old, there's the new. So that link will be in the description. If you guys want to order anything, I would highly recommend. This stuff is awesome for cleaning up bikes and polishing parts. I did just recently get the case back from Gary at Ironhead Cycle, and he made a sweet video showing how he did this repair. If you guys want to check it out, he showed his whole process getting the hole in the bottom of that case and that eye welded back on. So today I think I'm gonna go ahead and just do some polishing and cleaning up, and if I have time, I might start getting the bottom end built. We'll see. Well, that was definitely not the prettiest process trying to do this in a sling, but I did manage to get all of the bearings out of the linkage. Not sure Doc would have been happy with the use of my arm, but got it done. Gonna get this thing cleaned up, get the new bearings installed. These bearings were not in as bad of shape as the swing arm bearings, but while we're going through the whole bike, we might as well give her brand new bearings and make her super fresh. I've got the linkage all polished and cleaned up and ready to install the new bearings. I have this awesome PivotWorks linkage rebuild kit all ready to go. All of the PivotWorks bearing kits come with this really high quality, waterproof, high load bearing grease. So this is what I will be using to lubricate the bearings when I install them. Getting the new linkage bearings installed using the vise was a breeze, and boy is freshly rebuilt linkage satisfying. Doesn't that look good? Alright, my goal today is to get the linkage bolts cleaned up, the axles cleaned up, polish the case halves, and install the crank and transmission to get the bottom end of the engine started. Got all of these bolts polished up and they look amazing. I still honestly just can't believe how awesome these Pryme MX pads are. Again, if you're doing anything like this and you want some of these, I will have a referral code on screen and down in the description. I've got one case half pretty well polished up, and you can see how nice it looks in comparison to the other one. I did this coarse Dremel wheel from Pryme MX first to cover the big spots, and then I moved on to these little guys that don't last very long. I went through about 3 of them on this case half, but I use those to get into the tighter areas. So I'm gonna do the same on this half, and then I'm gonna actually wash them down in the sink because I've got a bunch of garbage in this, so I need to get all that out before I install the bearings and the crank and tranny and such. So go ahead, get these cleaned up a little bit better, but just wanted to show you guys each half in comparison. The case halves are prepped. I'm pretty happy with how they're looking. I have the oven preheating. I'll throw them in at 325 for about a half hour so that the aluminum can expand. And I already have the bearings and the crank in the freezer so that hopefully the bearings will just drop right in and the crank install will go easy. While I have the case apart, I do want to showcase the fix that Gary from Ironhead Cycle did. This is where the case had the hole in the bottom. He added some fresh aluminum in there. The welds look really nice, and he welded that eye back on. The case looks really great from the inside. Structurally, it should be solid, and the crank should spin freely in there. So really, really happy about that. Thanks to Gary. If you need anything repaired like this, I would highly recommend going to check him out. The case halves just came piping hot out of the oven. Looks like I will need to install some new crank seals before I install those bearings. So that's gonna be step 1. And then I'll pull the bearings out of the freezer and start dropping them in. Alright, installing of bearings went smoothly, as did the crank and transmission. I then bolted the halves together and the transmission did not want to spin, so I realized it was this bearing wasn't in far enough, at least that's what I think it was. So I tried to hit it in a little farther and it actually bent the race of the bearing, and now it won't spin instead of actually going farther into the hole. So unfortunately, I'm gonna need to pull this bearing and get a new one before I can actually get these cases together. I assume that's it, because once I loosened it just a little bit, the tranny would spin and all the other bearings look good, and it was just that one seemed to be up a little bit too high. That is where we are for now. I used this this Hot Rods transmission bearing kit and it was awesome. All the bearings fit perfect, dropped right in. The freeze and heat method works awesome. All right, in store this evening is get the paint off of that, and then polish both of these. This ignition cover is actually plastic, so I will be dyeing this black. For the paint removal on this piece, I'm gonna start with this 180 grip flap wheel from Pryme MX. I'll test a little portion on the plastic, it might be too aggressive, but then I will work my way from the coarse cleaning wheel to the fine cleaning wheel to polish this and the Kickstarter, and then we'll just have to see what ends up being best for the plastic. I honestly don't know how I built bikes before buying this and these. I bought this at Harbor Freight for like 80 bucks and it's done absolutely great. And holy cow, is that just wild or what? I'm gonna be drooling over this the entire build, but man, am I just constantly impressed how good all the parts look after these. They were a little too aggressive on this, not a big fan of what it was doing to the plastic, so I'm just gonna paint strip that and then clean it up before dyeing it. Solid progress for the evening. The shoulder's sore. I think I'm gonna call it a night. So as a quick recap, here is what we accomplished. Got all of these parts cleaned up and looking nice, as well as all new bearings in the linkage. Everything is looking fresh and ready to go. And got the cases cleaned up, polished up, new bearings installed, crank and transmission installed, just waiting on this bearing. Oh, and I did actually remove this crank bearing again because I noticed I kind of dented this crank seal a little bit. I think it would have been fine, but I figured the engine's completely apart right now. Might as well replace it while I'm at this point. So I'll just be, that bearing's back in the freezer. I'll just be dropping that back in once I get this seal and that bearing. All right guys, thanks a ton for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Really stoked to be back out here working on the bike again. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them in the comment section below. Again, down in the description, I will have links to the tools and parts I use, as well as my affiliate link for Pryme if you find yourself wanting to try out some of these wheels. All right, stay tuned for the next one.